Whether you're a diehard sports fan, a hopeless romantic, or a comedy aficionado, the Xfinity 10G network was made for streaming it all. Worry less about buffering when streaming your favorite shows, movies, or live sports, and enjoy a better way to watch. Xfinity gives you a reliable connection for streaming, plus all the entertainment you love all in one place. Fear not, because now you can finally sit back, relax, and stream your favorite entertainment and sports like never before with the Xfinity 10G network.
First, the bad news. SAP Business AI won't help you generate cubist versions of your family's holiday photos. But it will help you understand which supplier is best to help you roll out your plant-based packaging in Southeast Asia, or identify the training your junior project manager needs to rise up the ranks, and automate repetitive tasks while you focus on big innovations, so you can be ready for the next opportunity. Revolutionary technology, real-world results. That's SAP Business AI.
It's time to get your hockey fix. This is Brave the Wild with your host, Paladino Joey, the leader of Minnesota Wild Hockey, here on thesportstuff.com. Hello again, hockey fans. Are you ready to brave the wild with me, your host, Paladino Joey? Brave the Wild is available on thesportstuff.com and on iTunes. I thank each and every one of you always for downloading and listening to this show. It is a great pleasure to be back once again. I do apologize for the 2 or 3 week hiatus, I suppose now. Since the last show, my schedule's gotten a little busy. It changed temporarily. It's still changed, but yeah, it's just, it was kind of a tough adjustment, and it'll go back to normal soon, but glad to hop on board tonight, ready to rock and roll. Going to talk about, multiple 2-game stretches, and of course the All-Star break as well was also another reason that I was kind of away. I figured, people probably aren't really going to be listening when it's the All-Star break. Everybody's probably stepping away from hockey for a little while, unless you do watch All-Star games, which I don't for the most part. It's just kind of a silly, firing squad when it comes to NHL All-Star Game, in my opinion. Skills competitions are kind of cool, but then again, that's all everyone's opinion, I suppose, a mixed opinion on that one. But like I said, 2-game stretches that were all quite different in a lot of ways. Since the Minnesota Wild's second victory with Devin Dubnyk in net way back on January the 17th, they defeated the Arizona Coyotes, Dubnyk's former team, just a couple days after acquiring him. Kind of cool there. Yeah, that 3-1 game, we remember that was the last where we left off. So then, it's great. Nice little 2-game win streak. You beat the worst team in the league, 7-0. And you beat a team in Arizona who's not been doing very well after getting, earlier in the week, getting crushed by Nashville and Chicago and Pittsburgh. Just getting destroyed in Pittsburgh, 7-2. So we head home against the Columbus Blue Jackets, Todd Richards in tow. And we lose 3-1. Devin Dubnyk, outstanding in the game, but the Wild offered no punch. The defense was not good. The offense wasn't good. It was just the same tired energy. It reeked of Mike Yo's probably going to get fired at some point, maybe the end of the season, maybe the end of February or mid-February, whatever was going to happen up and coming. It really looked like Mike Yeo was probably going to get fired when they went down 4-1 against Detroit. But then Zach Parise led an unbelievable comeback. Took the Wolves to the shootout with an amazing steal. Basically, he forced the turnover from the goalie, stole the puck away from the goalie, scored, tied it up. It was oh my God, we actually might win in Detroit. How unbelievable is that? And this was a game also, when we're talking about disappointing. See, it's disappointing, boring / but winning, and then flat out outstanding in the last pairing of games. Now, these two were very disappointing in a lot of ways. Even though the Wild made that wonderful comeback, well, Devin Dubnyk gave up 4 goals and was pulled. So that was disappointing. It's okay, I guess the Magic's already run out on this guy. I guess he's the one guy that people were talking about isn't able to hold a starting job. It's all about he's only good when he's a backup. Great, that's fantastic. I guess that's just all he is. It's another Kemper maybe at best. Long term. But no, Devin Dubnyk from here on out, now this is obviously the next several days turned into the All-Star break. So it got a little boring. We had to have no hockey for shucks like a whole week. That was kind of tough to swallow, in my humble opinion, because, again, All-Star game ain't hockey, though the skills competition, it's okay. I mean, I was at the Minnesota Wild one way back in 2002 and 2003. Those were not bad. But ultimately, you head to the old Northwest Division rivals. Remember those guys? Yeah, I remember those days. Wasn't that fun? Wasn't it fun? Heck, I miss it. I miss it to a point. Now they're in their new division. Edmonton Oilers. Minnesota heads to Edmonton, Alberta, and Calgary, Alberta. Tuesday, the 27th of January. And this is one of the most boring games I've ever watched in the history of, ever. We muster a 2-1 victory. That's good. I mean, we won in regulation, so at least we didn't have to go to a shootout against Edmonton or overtime against Edmonton, a team with an immense amount of talent. You'd think this would be a high-scoring game. But no, Devin Dubnyk was unbelievable throughout the night. The Minnesota Wild defense was smothering and fantastic. This is kind of like a Mike Yeo type of game when you think about it. This was a sign that Mike Yeo's coaching was starting to take effect again. Thank God for him, and at least in his stand on his side of things here, he's thinking thank God. But at the same time, it's also just a good sign for the possibility that the Minnesota Wild just maybe might still have a glimmer of hope of carving out some type of respectable season here, and just maybe even something beyond the month of April. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice? Gotta say, I've said this a million times before, and I'll say it a million more times in the future. I love the Edmonton Oilers uniforms. They're wearing the 80s Oilers again. I love it when professional teams go back to their retro look, because quite often the retro look is better than the modern look anyway. Like, sometimes there's no real reason to get rid of the old look. Just keep it. Kind of like, the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees have done over like decades and decades. Teams like that, the Celtics. The Oilers obviously had quite a nice success rate in the 1980s, so I'm kind of glad that they're wearing those again. This team, the skill of the young guys, well, yeah, it does represent the Edmonton Oilers in a sense, but their overall lack of ability to win games and generally poor defense, which we didn't see on this particular night, is quite different than that Edmonton team. The worst team in the Western Conference. They're always one of the top picks in the entire draft, and they're going to get it again, which is unbelievable. Like, how many prospects do they need? We could have used one if we had, say, like maybe the 8th overall pick or something, if we were to kind of go down, but not down enough. It'd be about time the Wild got a number 1 overall pick. I mean, they've never come close to that. The closest thing we've had to a number 1 overall pick was Alexander Daigle, because he was a former number 1 overall pick, now that I've said that 16 times, in 1993. And he had one good year, and then he kind of lived up to the bust that he was. Long story longer, wonderful game for the Wild in terms of that they won the game. It was 1-1 for the longest time, kind of scary. Quite scary indeed, but the real wonderful part about this one was the unbelievable goal by Charlie Coyle. I mean, highlight play of probably the best goal of the entire season in terms of just an outstanding play. Charlie Coyle with the takeaway, goes on the break, has two defenders catching up to him, fakes right, kind of swings his stick around and wraps that puck into the net. An unbelievable play by Charlie Coyle. The defensive play he made to get the puck in the first place, the explosion, and then the move. As they were making contact with him, and the goalie looked like he was going to make a kick save and stop Charlie Coyle before he was going to get a shot off. Just something else, and Wild ended up winning the game. It's funny how it took a highlight to beat Edmonton, but hey, at least we kept them to 1 goal. Kind of in a lot of ways the opposite of what you would expect between Minnesota and Edmonton. You'd think it would be like a 4-3 type of game, which I was actually expecting, because Edmonton can score, but they can't stop anybody. Instead, it was the opposite. It was kind of like the old Oilers and the old Wild about 10-plus years ago when Jacques Lemaire was coach, and the Oilers had their quote-unquote modern uniforms, which I thought were boring as hell. Yeah, and they were kind of a defensive, gritty, boring team, and the Wild were a defensive, gritty, boring team. Yeah, so there it is. Wonderful win for the Wild. A weak opponent, but hey, a win's a win. There you go. At least we got something out of it. Wild head to Calgary, Alberta, a team that it was at the time, and still is, holding on to the final spot in the Western Conference playoffs. The Calgary Flames have definitely had a strong season this year. They're not great, but they're not like maybe the 2000, what they were in 2008, 9-ish, 10-ish when they were, they were about a 6th seed or something. They looked like they could have been a threat in the Western Conference back when they were still in our division. In fact, they made a nice series with Chicago at the time, but ultimately the Blackhawks were too much. But it's nice to see the Flames finally being a bit competitive again, and a team that had been on fire. The Calgary Flames were literally on fire over the past week or so, and Devin Dubnyk just shuts him out. He pitches a shutout. Devin Dubnyk has flat out taken over, has just taken over everything, stopping 29 shots, including an insane flurry from the Calgary Flames. Flurry, yeah, there you go. They're on flurry. They went ape in that third period, attacking Devin Dubnyk and the Wild defense over and over and over. And that crowd, that fan base is the best in the league, I think. I mean, I love the Sea of Red. I do. I know they were a division rival for over 10 years for the Minnesota Wild in that Northwest Division. But I love the Sea of Red, and that's my second favorite team in hockey, folks. It is. I mean, I love the logo. I love the fan base. They're not obnoxious. They're just good. I mean, they're just a good fan base. And, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to hide my admiration for that team, even though they've never been, even though they haven't really been good lately. But I still appreciate the fan base. Love their uniform colors, all that stuff. And back in the late 80s, they were a hell of a team. And that's about all else there is to say in this one. They attacked the Wild like crazy, but they won the game. The Wild ended up winning the game with a shutout. Devin Dubnyk with one great stop after another. The Wild's defense was very, very damn good along the way. Spurgeon, Suter making good plays along the way. Brodin, others. There were some scary plays along the way as well, but the Wild ultimately get the job done. The only scorer in this one, Zach Parise, because he's the only guy that does score, right? And Thomas Janik with a really, really awesome feed, actually, to Zach Parise. And that was only midway through the first period. The rest of the game, it was just a whole lot of not scoring. The Wild did put the pressure on Jonas Hiller, who also was outstanding. He just gave up that one goal to Parise. That was the difference. That's about all there is to say. Got to keep moving. Definitely got to keep moving. So now there's only 2 games left, if you can believe it, as we head into the month of February. Yes, sir, and the highlights of this episode, without a doubt. Sunday, the 1st of February, the Wild start off the new month on a very, very positive note, but they almost gave it away. Yeah, they almost gave this one away. Kind of scary there, up 3-0, kicking some butt. I mean, I was really enjoying this. The Wild really putting the pressure on Vancouver, without a doubt. Gotta love that Vancouver Canucks, don't you? Yeah, Ryan Miller, nothing special. And ultimately, it's not like the Wild really put the pressure on. It's just that they made some good scoring chances and got the job done. Ultimately, only 19 shots. Ultimately, Ryan Miller is one of the most. He's got to be the most overrated goalie in the league. I mean, they're always talking about like he's this. I mean, for the longest time, people were talking about like he was this star in Buffalo, and boy, you'd have to give up a lot to get him. And then St. Louis got him, and he was well. What happened to the St. Louis Blues after they got Ryan Miller? What? So Brian Elliott wasn't good enough? Was that the thought process in St. Louis? They had the best record in the league, and Brian Elliott has got to be the most underrated goalie in the league. And I've long been saying the Wild should have chased him down years ago, be a trade or whatever it was. Ultimately, hopefully, we found our man here. But if not, I would have chased Brian Elliott for to the ends of the earth, man, to get him on the Wild. No, I mean, he's not that good. I'll chill out, but he is a damn good goalie. And St. Louis made a hell of a mistake there. Ryan Miller's had a decent season, but he certainly wasn't anything special in Vancouver against the Wild on Sunday the 1st here, just a couple of days back. 4 days back. Ultimately, a 4-2 victory for the Wild. Another game where Zach Parise scored a goal. I mean, you got to like that. Zach Parise scoring like one game after another. He's going to... And it's sad, in a stretch that Zach Parise's had, about 7 goals in 8 games here. By the time we get to the Chicago game, which will wrap this first segment up, he's going to end up being an honorable mention for the Mike Modano Award. That's how crazy it is. That's how crazy a certain player has been, and we all know who it is. Ryan Suter was good in the game, definitely. Still playing way too much, but Strong performance for the Wild. Nice goal by Granlund. Very cool to see him, actually. Actually, that's the next game, pardon me. Thomas Vanek finally getting his 10th goal of the season. Jason Zucker, another guy who's been playing really well. Another explosive play, making his 17th goal of the year. He's going to get his 18th against Chicago. Again, I mean, just an outstanding game for the Wild. Lots of energy in general in terms of finishing their shots. Nice plays, nice feeds. Jared Spurgeon with his 7th goal of the year overall. Nice to see Granlund back, by the way. That's another thing of note. Granlund's finally back out there playing again and playing very, very physical. That was really, really nice to see. Man, oh man. And of course the NBC people, they don't make him sound very good. they call him Michael Granlund, but it's Mikhail Granlund. Gotta like that part, Mikhail Granlund. He had 2 assists in this game. Overall, just a very positive night. Very scary, though, at one point when Sedin and Kennan scored with less than a minute apart from each other. Kind of got us a bit freaking out there. And then Vancouver was putting the pressure on with the empty net, the extra attacker, 2 whole minutes before the end of regulation. 3-2 game. Jason Zucker ultimately gets control of the puck. Or actually, Ryan Suter gets control of the puck and then feeds it up to Jason Zucker, who streaked to the net and put it away. 17th goal of the year, and the Wild escape Vancouver. 3rd victory in a row, and fourth game where the Wild at least registered a point via that shootout loss to the Detroit Red Wings. Yes, sir. Fantastic. The Wild edging closer and closer to a possible playoff position. Just a wonderful feeling for all of us, and Devin Dubnyk making nice saves along the way. One of those shots, though, and it's his shot in general, he was just putting the puck on net, and it went in. That was pretty frustrating. I didn't like that one from Dubnyk, but ultimately he was able to escape what could have been a very big disappointment for all of us here in Minnesota. Dubnyk did keep his composure, did ultimately stick with it, and got the job done. And he hasn't allowed a goal since. As we wrap this segment up with the Chicago Blackhawks game in Xcel Energy Center, and it was one of the worst announced games for the Minnesota Wild, probably in a long time. It was on NBC Sports, but it wasn't even supposed to be on there necessarily. It just ended up being there. And we got the Chicago Blackhawks feed, and like I said, they're calling him Michael Granlund and Zach Parise. I mean, I'm getting tired of hearing Zach Parise. But, the Minnesota Wild just, they came out with the same exact intensity they did the game after Mike Yeo's outburst about a month ago against the Chicago Blackhawks in Xcel Energy Center. The Wild came out with the vengeance, came out like a tornado, as they said, as Patrick Kane said. Yet the Blackhawks still won 4-3 because their goaltending, or 5-3, pardon me, because the Wild's goaltending situation sucked and the defense wasn't playing well either. Suter continued to just get absolutely obliterated at the time. We didn't have a goalie. The team wasn't confident. We still played with a ton of passion in that one. We kept it interesting, but the Blackhawks just pulled away, and 5 goals isn't going to make anyone blush. It ain't making Ken Dryden blush, that's for sure. But Devin Dubnyk in this game, well, he stopped everything he had to face. The Minnesota Wild defense was unbelievably smothering in this game, and they put up over 40 shots in this game on Corey Crawford. Unfrickin' believable. Just wow. Like, what a game for the Wild. It got to be their best game of the year. 43 shots overall. 43. The Wild scored 3 goals, and Crawford's save percentage is still 93%. That's how many shots the Wild put on that. Just because Crawford wasn't that bad. He really wasn't. The Wild defense was unbelievable. Patrick Kane, remember how people always say that Patrick Kane, you can never get to him because he's so elusive? And my God, he's the best stick handler oh my God, he's just unbelievable stick handler. I mean, just the more and more you watch him, and the smooth passing and the smooth puck possession that the Blackhawks have, the Wild a bit clumsier with the puck than the Blackhawks. No surprise there. Yet they still outworked the living bleep out of the Blackhawks throughout the entire night. But no, like as I was saying, how they always say you can't hit Patrick Kane. Well, the Wild were hitting Patrick Kane in this one. They were getting to him. And that was awesome. That was awesome. And the Blackhawks are actually shut out for the 2nd consecutive game, if you can believe that, folks.
Oh, my God!
Pretty weird. The Blackhawks shut out 2 games in a row. That's kind of weird. I didn't think that was humanly possible. Just seeing a 3-0 victory over the Chicago Blackhawks, to me, just has had me scratching my head. But to think they even got shut out the game before. So, yeah, they're struggling. But a win's a win. The Wild absolutely earned it, and this was one of the best teams in the league. Because how many times does it turn out where, say, the Blackhawks or the Pittsburgh Penguins, St. Louis Blues, Nashville Predators now. God, I hate even thinking that they're good. But, the Nashville Predators had a crappy game the night or two before, and they come into Xcel Energy Center and kick our ass like 5-3 or 5-2. A lot of people wouldn't have been all too surprised because the Blackhawks are, well, they're one of the dynasties in hockey right now, them with the LA Kings, who are also struggling all of a sudden. But the Wild just shut them down and made them look like garbage, and the NBC announcers were more like talking about how bad the Blackhawks were versus how dominant the Wild were. I think they should have said both, and that kind of annoyed me just to a teeny tiny bit that the Wild did not get more respect from the national broadcasters. Come on, Mike Milbury, let's go. Come on, Milbury. Please. Yeah, no Jeremy Roenick on there, unfortunately. Would have liked to hear that. He was calling for Mr. Yo's head, and I didn't blame him at the time. Milbury was doing the same. But, there it is. Just another outstanding performance for the Wild. This was as good as it gets. Dubnyk only 24 saves, but there were some good ones along the way. There weren't great ones, but he stopped when he needed to. Mikko Koivu had a really nice shot in the game to get things going early on. Zucker just blowing by everybody again. Scandella with a nice crash to him. Well, actually, ultimately to Koivu and then to Zucker. And then Granlund, centering pass from Parise, finished that one and kind of a slap shot, one-timer type of goal. Wow. Really cool. Only his 5th goal of the year, but Mikael Granlund, hope I haven't been saying Michael because that would be ridiculous. It is Mikael Granlund. Has been playing significantly better. That's 3 points in 2 games, as a matter of fact, for Mikael Granlund. That is a damn good sign. And plus the fact that he's been mixing it up with, he's been mixing it up with the other team over the course of time, mixing it up with the defenders and such, crashing the net, getting physical. Hey, we didn't see that early this season from Mikael Granlund when he was playing a lot he was having a huge bust of a season. So very, very encouraging. Everybody's playing better, and boy, does it heal things when you get a goalie who's more than competent between the pipes versus what we'd had for the longest time. Darcy Kemper, by the way, did fill in for Dubnyk. So to be fair, Darcy Kemper did fill in for Dubnyk in that Detroit game when he was pulled, and he was respectable, but he was beat on 2 shots in the shootout. That was the disappointing part. But hey, the Wild at least escaped with a point in a game they were trailing 4-1 in, and that being Detroit, Michigan. That's pretty impressive, to be quite honest. Glad we were able to escape with that. Still wish we could have won, though. Kemper has been down in the Iowa Wild of late, and he had a horrible game not too long ago. Boy, oh boy. Not sure what to make of Darcy Kemper right there. So let's get to the awards for the 6 whole games that were in this episode. Glad I was able to get them all in together and at least give you enough detail to paint the picture of how the past couple of weeks were for the Minnesota Wild. The Mike Modano Award winner for this episode is Devin Dubnyk. Strong honorable mention to Zach Parise. Zach Parise, who was absolutely outstanding, continuing to score. He did not score a goal or get an assist in Xcel Energy Center on Tuesday versus Chicago, so that was his first non-point game in quite a while. I gotta stop making that noise. The James Shepard Memorial, the disappointment of the week. It's kind of tough. I mean, the Wild have been playing so well. I suppose Eric Halla, I guess. I mean, he hasn't really been scoring of late. The rest of the team's been doing pretty well. And I can't really pick on the lower-end guys like Prosser necessarily, and even though he's got his flaws, but he had some nice games as well. Koivu actually was pretty good this time around. I can't really pick on him too much. Shoot, I guess ultimately, if I have to give a James Shepard Memorial, because sometimes you can give it to executives and coaches, just I try not to very much because that's kind of cheap. But sometimes you got to do it, and I'm going to give it to Chuck Fletcher for not getting Devin Dubnyk sooner. Because the Minnesota Wild would probably be fighting for home ice advantage, at least in the first round. They'd be in one of the top 3 seeds in the Western Conference, I honestly believe, if they had Devin Dubnyk between the pipes because the Wild were playing fairly well. And especially when Darcy Kemper was playing good, the Wild were winning games at a very heavy rate. We were a top 3 seed in the Western Conference, and we looked like one of the best teams in all of hockey. But then when the goalie started taking a dump, everything else did too. I mean, the Wild had one of the best records in hockey, even with the worst power play in hockey. So it's like, imagine when the power play starts clicking and the goaltending is good. Like that situation, the Wild would have been, again, fighting for home ice advantage at least in the first round, if not throughout the Western Conference. And ultimately, hindsight is 20/20 and all that. And I understand there's unbelievable competition at the top, but we could have probably been the third or fourth seed, I think. I think it's possible. You got Nashville, St. Louis, Anaheim. Okay, they're probably untouchable right now. Forest could have been the Wild, though. So that's still home ice advantage in the first round. That's nice, even though maybe the Wild do play better on the road, and they're still 4-0 in 7th games. Just imagine if we had a chance to go to our 5th, 7th game in our history, and it would have been on the road in Chicago last year. It still sticks in my mind. It still does. Do you blame me? So there it is. Mike Modano Award, Devin Dubnyk, honorable mention to Zach Parise, and James Shepard Memorial going to Chuck Fletcher for not doing something about the goaltending situation earlier because it just about got this season killed. But now, I'll say this before I wrap up this segment. I have to mention one other quick thing. Ladies and gentlemen, despite all the disasters going on with the Wild, they're significantly closer now to making the playoffs, if you can believe it. They're only 5 points behind the Vancouver Canucks, and that's unfortunately because the Canucks won very, very recently. Because as of last night, or at least particularly when the Wild beat the Chicago Blackhawks, they were only 3 games out. But unfortunately, the Canucks won. So now they have 59 points, the Wild have 54, and the Winnipeg Jets with 50 or 61, pardon me. But the Wild are in the hunt, very much so. Colorado Avalanche are the only non-wildcard team that's ahead of the Wild. The only team that's ahead of the Wild right now, because the Los Angeles Kings have 54, along with the Dallas Stars. Lots of ties there, unfortunately. 4 teams all log-jammed within a point of the Colorado Avalanche. That's pretty crazy right there. And then the Canucks and the Jets, as I mentioned, right now holding those wildcard positions. Calgary Flames all the way up to number 2. They're ahead of the San Jose Sharks with 61 points. Again, things could change very, very quickly for any of those teams should they bump into a poor stretch because they're all like right on top of each other. So, yeah, the Wild do have life. They're not in the playoffs yet, but hopefully they could continue a nice run because near the end of the season, like Michael Russo mentioned on KFAN because he was replacing Paul Allen, the Wild better already have a pretty good position in holding a playoff spot going into the last couple of weeks because their schedule is going to get stupid hard at the very end of the season, which could end up costing them making the playoffs if they're not already in. So there you go. We'll see what happens there. So the Wild do have life. Ultimately, just got to keep at it. We'll talk about that, though, in the next segment because it will be the preview segment right after this. Winter and snow are back again. Nothing tastes better this time of year than Vanilla Bean Buffalo Sweat by Tall Grass Beer from Manhattan, Kansas. This Vanilla Bean edition of Buffalo Sweat literally warms your innards in this outstanding stout with that warming vanilla kick. Don't forget to try 8-Bit Pale Ale, the official beer of this podcast. When you see Pac-Man licking his chops, you found an amazing can and an even better beer. Check out the many other wonderful beers Tallgrass offers on their website at www.tallgrassbeer.com. Use their beer locator to see what's available in your area. You can follow Tallgrass on Twitter at TallgrassMN and like them on Facebook. Simply search for Tallgrass, Minnesota. Tallgrass Beer, bringing people together over a beer since 2007. Too busy to sit in front of a computer? Simply download Brave the Wild on iTunes for Apple devices. For Android, download the Double Twist app. And for Windows and BlackBerry phones, simply find us in the store. And now, back to Palladino Joey. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 2, preview segment. Ready to talk some, upcoming schedule here. It's kind of It's going to be interesting to see how things turn out. Minnesota Wild head to Colorado. I'm going to preview 5 games. So I know that sounds excessive, but yeah, the schedule gets busy. And being it is a Thursday night right now, and the possibility I may or may not record until Saturday night, possibly next week. That would lead all the way up to the Carolina game. So just in case it turns out that way, I will preview all 5 games. And otherwise, I may sneak it in Friday night. I may sneak it in Wednesday night when the Wild aren't playing. We'll see. We'll see how things go, but I'll preview them anyway just because. Colorado Avalanche, a team, again, the Wild are competing with for, moving up in the Western Conference to getting into the postseason. Remember, the Avalanche are actually 1 point ahead of the Wild. Can you believe that? With how bad the Avalanche were playing for the longest time, now they're ahead of us. That figures. Patrick Roy's got his team playing a little better right now. Alex Tanguay's leading the way. Jerome Iginla with 33 points. Matt Duchene has been all right with 31. Tanguay is 34, by the way. Nathan MacKinnon, a guy a lot of people talk about like he's the next Gretzky. 29 points in 51 games. Still not really blowing up like they would hope. They're in Colorado. I keep calling him Calgary, and that's driving me crazy. Varlamov. Varlamov is back in the net again. Yep, at least most likely he will be. Kevin Pickard, not spelled quite the same as Jean-Luc Picard. They had a K in there. Most likely we'll see Varlamov, even though Picard's playing slightly better than him at this point. It's kind of Varlamov's job to lose. I don't like the Wild playing against Jerome Iginla all too much, but we've had a wonderful amount of success against this team for a while now, and the Wild played great against them early in the season. Can they bring it back? That's the hope, because, it's definitely been a struggle, or should I say in a lot of ways, a change in identity for both teams. Not a struggle, a change in identity for both teams the past, several months here. Unfortunately, the Avalanche have been playing better. The Wild had been struggling, but the good news, again, is that the Wild are playing significantly better. The Wild continue where they left off against the Blackhawks and the Vancouver Canucks. The Wild should win this game, and I am going to pick the Wild to win this one. Because luckily it is at home. We're not going to Colorado. It is a home game. I like the Wild's chances against the Avalanche in this one. And that would put the Wild as the top team that's out of the wild card. So then there's only one more step to do, and that's to get into the wild card. Wouldn't that be fantastic? Wouldn't that be nice? That'd be great, wouldn't it? Get the Wild a lot closer. And this is a week that is definitely got wild card written all over it, at least the first 3 games. Then we play 2 Eastern Conference teams, both in the XL Energy Center, Florida and Carolina, which will be Thursday and Saturday next week. Colorado Avalanche, though, again, nothing dominant, and the Wild have matched up well against them for a while now, ultimately. They always seem to pick it up against this team, and the Wild play well against them in XL Energy Center. That's another good thing. In fact, Wild were 3-0 against the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs last year. So in XL Energy Center, and then we finally won one on the road, and that ultimately got us to the second round. I think the Wild continue their success rate against the Avalanche in XL Energy Center. This could end up being an extremely positive week for the Minnesota Wild in moving forward into the wild card spot. Wouldn't that be fantastic? We host the Vancouver Canucks February the 9th. That is Monday, of course. Monday, February the 9th. Hey, we beat them on the road. Why shouldn't we beat them at home? I hope we can win this one. I sure do. And it's like you look at the schedule. I really want to pick the Wild to go undefeated the next several games here. But it's like they probably are going to lose one here, unfortunately, or have a shootout loss or whatever it is, something like that. The Vancouver game, I'm not sure what to make of it, to be quite honest. I'm not. Ultimately, the Wild did win the only other game so far this year. It will be a 3-game series. There'll be 2 games in Vancouver and 1 in Minnesota. Boy, the Wild play Vancouver again just next week, literally Monday, the 16th. I think the Wild are going to lose one of these 2 games, unfortunately. Somehow, it's like I want to be so optimistic, and yet at the same time, I don't want to be negative either. It's just like backing all over the place. It's like, or I mean, at the same time, I know I can't be overly positive because it's kind of silly. You can't just suddenly get on a bandwagon. They're going to be 5-0 this week. I don't know what to make of this one. Man, oh man. Oh boy. I think the Wild win this one, if you can believe it. Yeah, it's going to be a good week for the Wild. I think they continue their winning ways. Oh, I'm having a tough time with this one. Oh boy. You know, to be fair, and also the possibility with the way Vancouver did come on the attack with the Wild, maybe they lose this one, unfortunately. The Wild lose this one. We're going to say it's not going to be a high-scoring one. It'll be 3-2. Possibly the Wild escape with a point in this one. We'll say maybe an overtime loss to Vancouver. Overtime loss. Not a shootout loss, an overtime loss. And I'd like to see Devin Dubnyk in a shootout to see how he represents. We haven't seen him do it here in Minnesota yet. So we'll see what happens. I'll go with an overtime loss to Vancouver, 3-2. So unfortunately, it's just going to be what it is. The Wild just the scoring does not continue from where it should be. That's a vibe I'm getting right now, I guess, because I can't go undefeated here. Otherwise, it's like I can flip-flop and have the Wild beat Vancouver and lose to Winnipeg, possibly. But, I mean, the Wild have always played Winnipeg well. Unfortunately, though, this one is in Winnipeg, and that's where the challenge really comes in here. A lot of people like the Wild's chances, though. We've played at home twice this year. We've won one in overtime and lost one in overtime. 4-3, 4-3. And then we won at home on December the 29th. That was huge for the Wild to keep their hopes alive. And then, of course, we know what they followed up with after that, a crappy home loss against the Columbus Blue Jackets on New Year's Eve. But they won in Winnipeg. So if I'm going to pick the Wild to lose against Vancouver, I will pick the Wild to win in Winnipeg. And I think it's going to be 3-2 again. It's going to be a 3-2 type game, maybe even 4-2 in favor of the Wild. Devin Dubnyk, I'm going to go 3-1 because Devin Dubnyk is going to shut down these Winnipeg Jets who don't score that much. I mean, they just don't. They're all right. You know, I mean, they're a talented team, but they're not a great team. They're physical. That's basically what they are. Blake Wheeler's an annoying guy to play against. Befrugen has been very physical and a very big pain in the butt. Probably my least liked member of the Winnipeg Jets. Hutchinson has been a pretty good goalie, and so has Pavlicek. I mean, he's been fantastic, but he's injured, so that's not going to happen for the Winnipeg Jets in this one. I've got the Wild winning 3-1, like I said. Wild will win 3-1 over the Vancouver Canucks in a physical playoff type of game. Yet again, maybe an empty netter to make it 3-1, something like that. It's going to be a lower scoring one, kind of like the Edmonton game, and an empty netter will make it 3-1 in favor of the Minnesota Wild over the Winnipeg Jets. They'll continue a very positive streak against them. Florida Panthers come to Xcel Energy Center Thursday, February the 12th. And oh boy, the Florida Panthers are playing a hell of a lot better than they were earlier in the season when the Wild went into Florida and won 4-1. I mean, that was a nice positive little win for the Wild. They kind of walked all over that team. Florida was definitely an inferior member in the Eastern Conference. Now they're 22-17 and 10. They have 10 overtime losses. That's kind of a lot when you think about it. But ultimately, they've just been playing significantly better. Roberto Luongo's been playing well. Montoya's even a nice goalie of late. Ekblad has been playing pretty well. Obviously, he went to the All-Star game. He's one of the defensemen there. Obviously, he's their top defenseman overall. Brian Campbell's been good. A lot of players there, including even Willie Mitchell's been playing at least decent for quite a while now. I mean, they're just a better team than they were. And this is not going to be the easiest game ever, though the Wild at least host this one. That's the positive side of things. It's kind of like, where do you go with this one? I'd like to know. Somebody fill me in on that, right? It's a pick'em. Yeah, it's a pick'em. Yeah, that would be great. That'd be great radio, wouldn't it? They're still fifth in the Atlantic, which is crazy. So it just shows how tough it is to make the playoffs in the National Hockey League. Oh, my. Their leading scorer is Nick Bjugstad, which is obviously he's the Minnesota Gophers former player. He's leading the way there. They're not a high-scoring team, which could be bad news if Devin Dubnyk's playing up to his potential, which spells a victory for the Minnesota Wild, ultimately. A 3-1 win for the Wild. 3-1. The Wild will score against their goalies, who are nothing special. They're good. Obviously, yeah. I mean, Luongo is a big name. He's not having a great season. He's playing better than he was at the time, though. But I think the Wild score 3 and the Florida Panthers either score 1 or even 0. I might even pick a shutout. Another shutout for Devin Dubnyk, but I'm going to be fair. Right now even the LA Kings and Florida Panthers are skating to a 1-1 tie in the third period at this point in time. So, yeah, I might even have to go with a 2-1 win in this one. Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1. 2-1 for the Wild in this one. And Devin Dubnyk might even get a shutout. I'm going to go 2-0 Minnesota. Devin Dubnyk will get his 4th shutout already with the Minnesota Wild. 2-0 victory over the Florida Panthers. Sorry for bouncing around there. Just kind of trying to get the vibe of what I feel in this one. The Wild will beat Florida despite the fact they have been playing better. It's a good matchup for the Wild. That's the good news. And, of course, Devin Dubnyk playing the way he has been. Carolina Panthers. Remember them. Carolina Panthers. I'm just kidding. That came out really funny. Carolina Hurricanes, because of the team I just talked about. Remember the Carolina Hurricanes when they actually were like a good team? And remember a guy named Hudobin who used to be with the Minnesota Wild years ago? Oh, and Cam Ward is another guy the Wild were hopefully trying to get. But Carolina probably wanted too much. They're only 17-26, totally, completely out of playoff contention. They have the Stahl brothers, and they have Falk, who's one of the better defenders, one of the better defensemen in the NHL. But, yeah, Carolina's just not playing well. Cam Ward, despite being on an awful team, who's 8th place, if there's such a thing, 8th place in the Metropolitan Division. Man. It's just I mean, he still has a 2.42 goals against average, save percentage 91.3. That's pretty damn good, to be quite honest with you. I mean, that's really good for being on a crappy team. And, yeah, Anton Khudobin, remember that name. Yeah. Eric Stahl's leading the way. Justin Falk, second on the team in scoring. Not many scorers on this team. It's going to be another one of those games. I see the Wild winning this one 4-1. The Wild will win 4-1 against the Carolina Hurricanes. I think they're going to struggle. They're going to have a rough game. They give up points. Anaheim just recently won 5-4 against them. Somehow they scored 4 points against Anaheim. Jeez, that's kind of weird. Carolina and Arizona are playing right now. That's another 1-1 game. Man, remember how good this team used to be back about 9 years ago already when they still had Rod Brindamore and such, and they beat the Wild. I still remember them beating the Wild 7-2 in the Xcel Energy Center. Just kicked our ass. And they went on later that year and won the Stanley Cup. I mean, they looked like a team that was competing for the Stanley Cup. And I remember they were winning the division, and I was just like, damn, that team is good. It's like 100 years ago, isn't it? I mean, because this team hasn't really been in playoff contention in ages. And they're not going to be for a long time. They better hope to get some nice prospects. Wild win 4-1 against the Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers. I keep saying that. Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, their Carolina Panthers are more interesting than the Hurricanes right now, aren't they? But it's going to be a really positive week for the Wild. And if I'm wrong, I apologize. I've got a good vibe right now. And if Devin Dubnyk continues to play the way he has been playing, there's no reason to believe the Wild shouldn't be competitive and competing for that playoff spot the rest of the season. There's no reason why the Wild shouldn't be. I mean, they've played themselves back into contention. Now let's keep it up and eventually, hopefully, finish the job. Wouldn't that be outstanding? So there it is. There you have it, folks. 9 out of 10 points for the Wild, if you can believe that. Because I do think we escaped with a point against Vancouver, believe it or not. I'll probably be wrong and we'll get a full loss and we'll get 8 points this week. But even if we do, it's a great week. Great week for the Wild. Great week and a half. It's 5 games. So there it is. All right, everybody, let's take us a quick break and we'll check in with the Iowa Wild and see what's going on with the fan interaction, if there was any at this point in time.
Do you shop on Amazon? Did you know that you can support this podcast just by doing your normal shopping on Amazon? It's really easy to do. Just go to thesportstuff.com and click on one of the many Amazon pictures. Do your normal shopping, and Amazon sees that we referred you, and they give us a percentage. We'd like to thank you in advance for supporting thesportstuff.com, and please use our Amazon link. Now enjoy the rest of the show.
We are going round.
Contact us and support Brave the Wild by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter. Don't forget to call into our phone lines at 209-736-7877. That's 209-736-7877. And we are back here on Brave the Wild, segment number 3. We'll check in very briefly with the Iowa Wild, and then fan interaction, which will feature Twitter tonight, not so much on Facebook. There were some posts a while back, and I've been inactive on that page, and I do apologize. That's on me. I'll be more active on there, and hopefully we'll get some more fan interaction on the Facebook page. Twitter, though, I've been fairly active on there, and I've gotten some responses. I do appreciate those of you that have been responding and have checked out the show. So those of you that might be new to the show, the past 1 or 2 episodes, thank you very much. Iowa Wild, well, Tyler Grayovac is leading the way. 34 points, in 44 games, 16 goals, 18 assists. Looks like a nice 7th-round pick for Chuck Fletcher. Outside of that, there isn't much positive news to talk about. Jordan Schrader and Matt Dumba, 2 guys that were playing very well down there. Matt Dumba, obviously, has spent most of the season with the Wild, but his time with the Minnesota Wild, but his time in Iowa, insanely productive as it was. He's got almost a point a game down there, a little bit less than that, but otherwise, I mean, nobody that's considered a higher-end prospect with the Wild is playing well down there. Zach Phillips sucks. 42 points, or 42 games, only 13 points still. Still at 13 points. It's been like 2 weeks since I've even been keeping up with the Iowa Wild. Back at it right now. It's been 2 weeks, basically, is what I'm trying to say, and he just sucks. I mean, he's got the same production as Stefan Veyu at the AHL level. What a bust. God, what a bust. Third liner at best at the AHL level, and he was a first-round pick, 28th overall, back with that Brent Burns trade. Yuck. Jonathan Blund has been productive down there. Very productive. In fact, he's the leading scoring defenseman down there only because Matthew Dumba didn't get to catch up to him in games played, per se. Jordan Schrader is up with the Wild as well because of an injury to Matt Cook, who is now most likely out for the season with a knee injury because he had that whole knee-on-knee situation. He was infamous for that over the years with Vancouver, with Pittsburgh injuring guys, and with the Wild last year. In the postseason against Colorado, and now he, call it karma or whatever, but now he's hurt, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, it's just, you just kind of knew that was going to catch up to him one way or another, and now he's hurt, and that's too bad. He's probably out for the season. They called it a lower body injury, but it's his knee, and there it is, the old knee-on-knee deal for Matt Cook. Jordan Schrader on the Wild roster. Happy for him, and he played well against Chicago, so that's good. That's good news without a doubt. Now let's get to that fan interaction. Oh, actually, no, let's check. Let's talk about Darcy Kemper down at the AHL level here really quick first. Yeah, it's just... it's like, do you even want to know? Okay, I'll tell you. Okay, it's actually not that bad. I'm just teasing. He just had one really bad game, but ever since then, he's been playing a little better. He's 1-2. He does have a shutout, a goals against average of 2.64. Keep him down there. Let him build up some of that confidence. I mean, he's going to have to. He's going to have to. Josh Harding, again, like I said, only played 2 games, and then the MS flared up, and that was all she wrote. Johan Gustafsson has been very, very disappointing. 26 games. Goals against average 3.39 at the AHL level. Whatever. Bye-bye, man. Bye-bye. So no wonder the Wild never called him up at any point. And John Curry was the guy that got the call. I mean, he's averaging about 1 less goal against a game, and his record is a lot closer to 500 than Johan Gustafsson's is. That guy's a bust, man. Darcy Kemper has been, he's been significantly better recently. He's only played in 3 games, but he's got a shutout already, so that's good. After one really bad start, he's doing a little bit better. So we'll see. We'll just leave that alone. Let's get to Twitter and wrap this show up. Apologize, this show not quite as detailed as some of the others because I'm just catching up. I mean, when you got 6 games to review and 5 games to preview, it's kind of tough. And that's on me again for not getting the show out. Just a lot of things. The schedule change kind of threw me off, and then I fell and got hurt and almost broke my ribs and my wrist. I mean, so it's just a lot of things threw me off the past like 10 days or so. And I apologize deeply. I think it's a better product when I keep up with things. Obviously, I was keeping up with the team, but keep up with the show. Then I don't have to kind of keep it moving without a little extra detail. But just in general, you get the gist. I mean, Granlund's been playing significantly better since coming back. I mean, without a doubt. And even Suter's been playing better. And Devin Dubnyk, what more is there to say? And again, Zach Parise has been on fire. As has Jason Zucker, the other left winger for the Wild. So let's get to the Twitter account a little bit. Kemper Cougars was saying, I keep saying that Koivu needs to be benched a few games to get the message that his play sucks this season, and I agree. She continues saying, I thought our young players played better last season when some of those vets were hurt, and they got us to the playoffs. Just saying. Excuse me. And yeah, they played way better last year. And finally, Granlund is playing better lately. Yeah, I mean, Weston Jensen and I were talking a bit. I was saying something. Yeah, I mean, the Wild were just getting their butts kicked at the time. That was the Detroit game. He was saying it blows, but then ultimately, that was the Columbus game. But yeah, it was really frustrating. We can never even beat Todd Richards. That's a joke. Absolute joke. Let's see, where are we? Matt Krebsbach. Matt Krebsbach, welcome aboard. He was saying $6.7 million for the next 3 years doesn't sound too appealing to me. Would like to spend the money elsewhere. And that is about Mikko Koivu. Yeah, we were talking about Mikko Koivu. Yeah, he'd been struggling really bad at the time. But again, has picked up his play a bit of late. He avoided getting any type of James Shepard memorial tonight. Congratulations. Yeah, he's not happy with Mikko Koivu. I told him to check out the show, and he said, will do. Hope you're listening right now, Matt. And again, I apologize for not getting the show out. I, again, think the product would have been significantly better if I just continued releasing them rather than right now with what I'm doing right now. Hopefully the product is listenable enough for you to keep listening to the show. Again, I apologize deeply. I really do, and it will be better. Yeah, it will be better when I keep getting these out on a weekly basis. Weston Jensen also saying he didn't know there was a show. Do you run it? And yes, I do. And thank you so much for checking it out, Weston Jensen. Yeah, we've been interacting for a little while now. He'd been favoriting some of my takes during the course of games and stuff, and seems like a pretty cool guy and that we think alike about the Wild and such. So, again, shout out to you and hope you're enjoying the show. And same thoughts like I told Matt there about the product tonight. Hopefully it's been up to your standards. And I, again, apologize for taking so long to release the shows and I think lowering the quality of the show, my humble opinion. But got to get it out at some point. And here it is tonight. Again, thank all of you so much for listening. Thank you for your loyalty to the show. I'm very optimistic about the way the Wild are playing of late. Will that wear off as quickly as it started? Possibly. But Devin Dubnyk's been playing great, and he's exactly what the doctor ordered. The Wild needed a goalie coming into the season. They did not get a goalie. It took until frickin' mid-January to get a goalie, and we have a goalie. So thank you. We have a goalie. We have a frickin' goalie. It's about frickin' time. Third-round pick or not, I don't think that's too expensive if he can live up to what he's playing right now, or at least be somebody at or very, very mildly above two goals a game. He could be a fantastic goalie for the Wild for a long time. Nicholas Backstrom was signed by the Wild as an undrafted free agent at the age of 28. He was brought in as a guy who would either be the starter in the minor leagues or a backup in the NHL, and he ended up knocking Manny out of a job within a couple months, and he was with the Wild forever. And now he sucks because he's too broken down. And he's 36, about to be 37 in March. He's broken down because of multiple injuries, even more than his age. I mean, he's older, yes, but some goalies last until they're 40. Like Dwayne Rolston, like many, many, many others. Like Dominic Hasek and just like a trillion others. Brodeur lasted forever until this year when you could tell he's done. In Backstrom's case, he got hurt way too many times. He's just done. He can't keep up with it anymore. He can't. And he made a horrible play, too, at one point as well. That didn't help his standards or help his standing in this league. It's definitely going to be his final season. Expect a buyout to happen. Rock and roll. Congratulations to the Minnesota Wild and Chuck Fletcher. in acquiring a goalie that apparently is competent. And hopefully he can continue to be that and not spend $1 trillion on him, though, in the offseason. Hopefully we can sign him to an intelligent contract, not $7 million a year or even $5 million. Hopefully we can get something at 3-ish or 2.5. That would be freaking awesome. Something like a 3-year deal, and if he continues to play great, then he can get his big contract. You know, you can't reward a guy with a massive contract because of a half season. So there you go, or even less than a half season. Just saying. Just saying. Thank you all for listening so much. Do give Brave the Wild a rating on iTunes. If you like the show, give Brave the Wild a rating on iTunes. If you don't like the show, move on, okay? You don't need to troll this show. You know, let the show grow and develop. You don't need to troll the show. Again, you're free to do that, but it's kind of lame and pointless, quite frankly. Like, what's the point? What are you trying to accomplish, ultimately? And if you do like the show, thank you so very much. Again, do give it a rating. Positive, if you could, 4 or 5 stars, and say what you like about the show. Maybe say what you like improved, because I'm always listening to anybody telling me what I can improve rather than just saying something stupid. We'll be back next week, and yes, it will be next week. Until then, though, everybody, do take care.